can!
It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle.
Hi, welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. Well, on the show today, BCCI shows who is boss in the ongoing standoff between the Indian board and its star players post the rules got leaked out. The board seems to have won the first round of the battle. Superstars Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma are set to feature in Ranji trophy matches for their state sides. How will this play out and what can we take away from this development? In tennis, Novak Djokovic crushes 21-year-old Carlos Alcaraz to make it to yet another Grand Slam semi-final, but with Alcaraz taunting and mocking Djokovic by limping during the game, has his rivalry turned bitter and ugly? What actually transpired and what did the players say post the match? And speaking of ugly, Manchester United has seen the good, the bad and now the ugly. Manager Ruben Amorim, while giving his team a dressing down after their loss to Brighton, smashed and broke a television in the locker room. Has Amorim lost his way or is there more to this? All of that heading your way, but first a look at the headlines on Sports 360. We'll start with football and the Champions League. Barcelona beat Benfica 5-4 in a thriller after Robert Lewandowski and Rafinha's braces. Eric Garcia scored the winner for the Spanish club. In another match, Liverpool continued their unbeaten run with their 2-1 win over LOSC Lille, making it 7 wins in 7 matches in the tournament for the English club. Meanwhile, in Saudi Arabia, Cristiano Ronaldo scored a brace in an Al Nassr's 3-1 win over Al Khalij. The Portuguese footballer came in handy in the second half with an opening goal in the 64th minute, followed by an injury time goal. Ronaldo has scored 19 goals in 22 matches for Al Nassr this season. On to tennis, women's world number 2, Iga Świątek has entered the semi-finals of the Australian Open. Świątek beat Emma Navarro 6-1, 6-2 in straight sets. The 5-time Grand Slam winner will now face Madison Keys for a place in the final. In NBA, LeBron James led Los Angeles Lakers to a comprehensive 111-88 points win over Washington Wizards. James scored 21 points and had 13 assists. Anthony Davis supported James with a 29-point performance for the home side. And summing it up with baseball, Major League Baseball or the MLB legend Ichiro Suzuki has been elected into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Suzuki is the first Japanese-born player to get the honor. Seattle Mariners, the team where Suzuki spent 14 of his 19 MLB seasons, will retire the number 51 jersey. Battle lines have been drawn, and no, I'm not talking about the India versus England cricket series that's starting and 2 opposing cricketing nations. The standoff is between the Indian board and its star players. The board's new rules with respect to domestic cricket, families travelling, training sessions and other practices have clearly been amended to clamp down on the superstardom culture and treat all players equally. But that has not gone down too well with the cricketers. Now, that would have been our guess and maybe some amount of speculation too, but Rohit Sharma quelled all of that when he admitted to Ajit Agarkar before the Champions Trophy squad announcement press conference that the players were not happy, not realizing that the microphones were on and that did enough damage. And proof for the world to see that all is not well in Indian cricket currently, and like any change, this will have its repercussions too. Like this, Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma turning out for their state sides in domestic cricket Ranji Trophy. It's been more than a decade since Virat Kohli has stepped foot into a domestic game, let alone a tournament, and it's been close to 2 decades since a test captain has turned up for a Ranji Trophy game. So quite a monumental sight this will be. But before we look at what this means, let's go into what transpired leading up to this moment. There was heavy silence on the Virat Kohli inclusion for the longest time. Reports kept emerging that Delhi was keen to include him in the squad probables. There was constant chatter from former cricketers as well, who were insisting that Indian batters needed to get back to domestic cricket, not just the senior players. Their performances over the last few months in the longest format had been appalling. Then, of course, came news that Kohli would not play the game starting on the 23rd because he had a niggle, a sprain in the neck for which he had taken medication, an injection right after the last test against Australia in Sydney. And finally, yesterday, a confirmation that Virat Kohli will turn up for the next match for Delhi starting 30th. Rohit Sharma, meanwhile, is in the 17-man squad list for Mumbai's game against Jammu and Kashmir at the BKC ground in Mumbai. Now, what does that mean? Simply put, the BCCI, the Indian Cricket Board, has won round one of the battle against the star players in the Indian setup. How have netizens reacted to this development and star presence in a Ranji Trophy game? Finally, take a look. Everyone's abuzz with the inclusion of these players for the Ranji Trophy matches coming up. In fact, extra security has been put in place for the Mumbai Ranji game that has Rohit Sharma and youngster Yashasvi Jaiswal in the mix, considering it is a smallish ground and crowd turnout is expected to be high. In fact, Virat Kohli's return to Ranji Trophy after 13 long years has also sparked some nostalgia. Here's how his last appearance at a domestic game at Ranji Trophy looked like. So many familiar faces there, and looks like time has really passed. But like I said at the start, this will be some sight. India's superstars finally playing some domestic cricket, which makes me wonder why the hesitation in playing domestic cricket at all. We've seen these very cricketers play cricket in England, the county cricket, it's domestic there in the past. How is that okay and not a Ranji Trophy game? Why does it mean a demotion or something that is beneath the stature? Any drop in performance would naturally mean going back to the drawing board, sorting out the kinks and the weaknesses that may have crept into the game. That's a natural course of correction that any player follows. Sportspersons the world over do that. And the only way the progress or the corrections can be tested is by getting match time. And match time means domestic cricket, the practice ground to get runs and confidence back. Now, I understand international cricket schedule, the calendar, and all of the travels is indeed grueling. They are physically and mentally exhausting. But when there is time and there's no other cricket, shouldn't domestic cricket be the answer? The board, in fact, gave a very strong warning last year to every single cricketer when they scrapped Shreyas Iyer and Ishan Kishan's contracts. From the central contract, they removed these two players. This action was taken after these two cricketers refused to turn up for their state sides, despite having the time off. One of them had a string of low scores and the other was not getting any game time in international cricket. BCCI made them examples of what could happen if cricketers did not toe the line or look to improve their game. What would happen if you thought you were superstars and that you are above the game? And it's not just Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Shubman Gill, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Rishabh Pant and Ravindra Jadeja will turn out for their domestic sides in the next few days. So BCCI, by getting Virat and Rohit to feature in Ranji Trophy, finally, after years, have ensured that the seniors have set an example for the rest of the players, led from the front, especially to some of the younger cricketers. That they have led the way for the rest, setting a new standard for Indian cricket. That no matter how much you grow in the sport and how many ever runs you score or wickets you take in international cricket, you still need to head back to your roots. You still need to play domestic cricket when you can. You're available and injury-free. It's plain and simple. But this is just round one. The battle, of course, is far from over. 10-time Australian Open champion Novak Djokovic has entered his 50th Grand Slam semi-final. That's an unbelievable achievement, and he did this by beating Carlos Alcaraz 4-6, 6-4, 6-3, 6-4. It was a 4-set thriller. But just like the rest of his Australian Open campaign this year, the quarterfinal was not shy of controversies, and this one has taken the cake. We've seen rivalries now, but this was something else. His opponent during the match, Alcaraz, mocked Djokovic by limping mid-match. The idea was to taunt Djokovic on his medical timeout and the leg injury that he sustained. Alcaraz subtly accused Djokovic of faking that injury, making the already feisty rivalry between the two turn into an ugly one. For those who couldn't catch the match live, during the intense clash, Djokovic showed signs of struggle. This happened during the first set when he was trailing 4-5. The Serb even asked for a medical timeout to address his discomfort. That happened again in the first half of the second set. But maybe whatever magic spray or medicine Djokovic used during the timeout worked, because the former world number one came out all guns blazing thereafter. He leveled scores, took a decisive lead in the third, and that's when Alcaraz decided to taunt the Serb. Not sure if Alcaraz thought this was funny, but even so, one thing you could tell is that Alcaraz wasn't too happy about what had happened or transpired leading up to this. Now, it's understandable. It was a fight for a spot in a Grand Slam semi-final. But Alcaraz did not do much to hide his feelings about Djokovic and his injury medical timeout. The world number three even lost his cool during the second set. Alcaraz argued with the umpire over a let call. The 21-year-old, in fact, accused the umpire of being biased towards Djokovic. And when Alcaraz started limping after the third set, the act was not lost on the broadcasters.
He's kind of limping around. Then he gets up and does it again, limping around and sitting down. He's obviously fine, just acting like he's got an injury. He's being Novak.
Well, don't know what the broadcasters were trying to hint there. Were they agreeing with this whole scenario, or were they also pointing fingers at Djokovic? But whatever it was, Alcaraz was clearly upset with Djokovic's medical break. He was unhappy with the way the whole situation had played out, but the matter has escalated with the legendary tennis player and commentator accusing Djokovic of faking his own injury.
This isn't the first time we've seen this routine. Don't be fooled.
And Alcaraz's anger did not subside even after the match completed. In his statement after the loss, the Spaniard subtly questioned the veracity of Djokovic's injury.
I think everybody saw in the second set he was struggling a little bit. Then the third and the fourth set, I didn't see anything bad from him. It's obvious, and everybody saw it, that he was struggling in the second set. Then the third and the fourth set, he showed he was really good.
Of course, fans of both these stars have come out reacting to the drama that unfolded on court. Djokovic has had a bit of history with his antics on court, but speaking particularly about this particular face-off, these two players have had quite a few battles on the court in the past. In the last 2 years, in fact, Djokovic and Alcaraz have played some of the most epic encounters which has decided titles. Before the Australian Open, it was a shot at gold at the Paris Olympics. Djokovic won that. Wimbledon final last year, Alcaraz had the last laugh. ATP 1000 final in Cincinnati. Djokovic sealed the trophy match at grass courts in 2023. It was Alcaraz and the French Open semi-final again the same year. Djokovic first beat Alcaraz and then, of course, went on to win the slam. Now, whatever happened during the match clearly rattled Alcaraz, but his antics only derailed his own focus. It did little to stop or sanction Novak Djokovic. In fact, after the match, the Serb was back to his fun quips and light-hearted banter. The Djokovic versus Alcaraz match ended well post-midnight, and as he was giving his post-match interview, Djokovic's daughter, Tara, was spotted tapping a fake watch on her wrist to tell him it was past her bedtime.
I'm surprised my kids are still here. Thank you for supporting me. But it's 1 a.m. When are you going to sleep tonight?
That quarterfinal was a classic example of a 38-year-old going about his business and showing a 21-year-old how it's done. And if anything else, this was a lesson in patience and how to get going despite adversaries. Alcaraz has much to learn, and that's what Djokovic was giving him a lesson in. And that moment between Djokovic and Murray at courtside right after that intense face-off would be enough to send Alexander Zverev the shivers, the player he's up against next. Maybe what are the takeaways from this quarterfinal though? Maybe 2 Grand Slam champions in one box was better than one. And when it comes to gamemanship, experience trumps young blood. Manchester United's woeful Premier League run continues to get worse as the season progresses. The club brought in Portuguese manager Ruben Amorim in the hopes of a revival. Instead, they are only inching closer to the relegation zone. And while the pressure is mounting in the dressing room, the Manchester United setup seems to be falling apart. Players are in disarray and the manager is feeling the heat, so much so that Amorim has reportedly smashed a television in the Old Trafford dressing room. This after Manchester United's 3-1 home defeat to Brighton. Is this new manager Amorim too losing the plot? A report.
Old Trafford, the theatre of dreams, the place which has witnessed some of the most iconic moments in the sport, is slowly turning into a theatre of broken dreams. Their Premier League title hopes smashed, European competition qualifications ambition shattered, infrastructure crumbling. And now the dressing room seems to be facing the brunt physically. Manchester United boss Ruben Amorim reportedly smashed a television set after his side's 3-1 home defeat to Brighton, making it 7 defeats in 15 matches under the new man at the helm, Amorim. A phase that has seen United slip to 13th position on the points table. And after that last game, the loss against Brighton, Amorim gave his team a dressing down. A rant that turned ugly with the TV getting destroyed in the process. Not sure how the Manchester United ownership will see it, because going by the Jim Ratcliffe ownership's cost-cutting methods, they only believe in results with no additional expenses. They will surely not be pleased with this outburst, but on a lighter note, they may just ask Amorim to foot the bill for the damage caused. But looks like the Portuguese manager is already paying a price for his move to Manchester United. Amorim, who's currently smashing television sets in Manchester, was smashing records in Portugal with Sporting CP, which is one of the reasons why the manager has gone from this to this. And there's more to this gloomy face. This isn't just another sad Manchester United manager who's facing the heat for the club's poor run. This is the face of a manager whose dressing room seems to be falling apart. Because right after the defeat, Amorim called this side the worst in the club's history.
We are being the worst team maybe, in history of Manchester United. We are getting a new coach that is losing more than the last coach. Everybody here is underperforming. No matter what the circumstances, we are underperforming. And we have to accept that. I know that you want headlines, but I'm saying that because we have to acknowledge that and to change that. So here you go, your headlines.
Amorim has accepted the failures of United and the flaws in his side, quite unlike his Manchester rival manager Pep Guardiola, who has blamed literally everything else on the planet. Amorim's failure has put his United job under jeopardy already. Even prominent voices, including chess world number 1 Magnus Carlsen, want the manager out. The interesting thing to note here is that Amorim actually wasn't keen on joining United mid-season. He wanted to see out his stint with Sporting until the end of the season.
I wanted to stay until the end of the season, but then I was told it was not possible. It was now or never, or Manchester would go for another option. So I had 3 days to make my mind up, to make a decision that changes radically my life.
And oh yes, it has changed Amorim's life. He doesn't have his players. The Manchester United setup is still getting used to playing his style. Senior players like Marcus Rashford are going rogue because of not getting picked in the starting 11. All this has led to Amorim being clueless.
If I knew, I will solve all the problems of this club, even
Quite a tricky phase for Manchester United, but maybe the solution is not to repeat the same mistakes. Amorim may not have results on his side or the wins to back his case, but the angry voices against him really aren't the answer. Maybe the fans and the management need to give him 1 season and a full transfer window where he can pick and choose his players. Because the worst United setup clearly isn't working with his vision. Maybe they need to give their manager the players he needs. If not, then maybe more miscellaneous expenses for the frugal Ratcliffe ownership.
Time for last serve. The World Rally Championship launched in Monte Carlo's Casino Square. There will be 14 races across 4 different continents. Here are glimpses from the launch. Quite the grand opening that, but this wraps it up here on First Sports. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines. Detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT. Only on Firstpost.